Hubscale Podcast. I'd like to give a huge thank you to our viewers and listeners for tuning in, as always. Today we have a very special episode where we're joined by Rick Vanover. He is the VP of Product Strategy at Veeam, and Veeam recently acquired Security AI in December. And so Rick, having been at Veeam for a shocking 16 years, is best placed to tell us a little bit more about the exciting developments that are happening within this space. Um, so I guess before we get started and talking a bit more about Veeam and security, for those that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, Rick, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on the episode of the Hubscale podcast here. I was really looking forward to this. And yeah, Rick Vanover, in my 16th year here at Veeam, I've been on the product team the entire time, and it has been an absolute incredible journey. I've seen so many changes and pivots in the industry, and then as well with our company, our product portfolio. And I honestly really love the name Hubscale Podcast because our hubs have scaled as our business, our R&D hubs, our marketing hubs, our sales hubs, they've grown. And like, here's the way to kind of sum it up best, Laura. When I started, I think I was like the 347th employee worldwide. Now we have over 6,500 employees worldwide. So I used to know everybody. Now I don't know anybody. But yeah, so it's been really interesting being with the company that long. And again, on the product team, just at the heart of the innovation. I wake up every day really excited to tell these stories.
Yeah, you must be part of the furniture now.
Well,
Love it
as
so
you can
much.
see what I've done with the place, you're not too far off. This is not a virtual background. I guess, I'm based in Central Ohio in the US, and really every single one of these effects back here, I've go to like events and team of meetings and Veeam things, and I take something back.
Yeah.
And it's kind of incredible because so many times they just bin it, and I'm like, that's cool stuff. And I
Yeah.
may or may not always be checking a bag, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. You want to have your memorabilia for all the good conversations you're going to have.
For sure.
Um, but no, amazing. Well, I mean, such an interesting story, I think, with Veeam and the how far you guys have come in the past, 20 years. Um, you know, I think, particularly with this new acquisition of Security AI, worth $1.7 billion, one of the biggest last year, and obviously last year was a year of some big acquisitions. Um, you know, as the integration gets underway, how do you see the two platforms coming together? And what value do you think this will create for new customers?
So first of all, the security AI acquisition was a massive step forward for Veeam and really for the industry because it's different than what a lot of the other players have done. So what I think to the root of the question of the value for customers, there's no question that Veeam is now at the heart of the supply chain of data. And that's really my take because we're messaging ourselves as a data and AI trust company now. And it's really important because that AI trust part is really working backwards or forward, whichever way you want to look at it, in the supply chain of data towards the production side of the data. And we'll maybe get to this a little bit in a moment here, but that's also the heart of what the Agent Commander announcement we had recently is about. But what I really think people need to understand is I look at myself when I grew up and started my career in backup, even before Veeam, I was getting ready for things like fire, flood, and blood. Okay, that was what I prepared for as data protection, backup, resiliency, availability, whatever we call it. Then came ransomware. So that's like this second generation of things you had to kind of be ready for. But right now, today, organizations have a third generation of risk, and that's really around AI agents and the data being fed into them, whether it's bad data, whether it's sensitive data, or whether it's data that shouldn't be processed and put out through an AI model or AI pipelines as organizations are building their AI stacks. And so that's really what I mean by Veeam is at the heart of the supply chain of data because it's really thinking about all three of those disasters, potential disasters, and we're giving folks incredible value of visibility and control to really hedge that risk.
No, exactly. And it's such an interesting time, I think, in combination because there's no other company that has really combined a true backup solution and a true data security solution. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the market. And certainly there's not many companies that have a mature AI security product as well. There's a lot of startups out there, but not necessarily deep ones that have been years in the making. Um, of course, with AI is everywhere at the moment. You can't do anything on LinkedIn without seeing it everywhere. And, every company claims to have AI as part of their product at the moment. Sometimes it's not exactly accurate or more than a chatbot, but, we are still learning how best to keep our data secure in this new world that feels very fresh, almost like, of AI. So, what do you think AI will have as an impact on the world of data and security in the next few years?
Well, I think the impact is really just quality, simply put. And let me give you a very like just relatable example, Laura. If we think about Copilot, GPT, Gemini, some of the, commodity AI tools, the better the prompt, the better the response. Have you ever felt that where you kind of just type something in? It's like, okay, I need to give you more information. Let me type more. Or sometimes I'm getting to the point where I narrate because I can get all those thoughts out a lot quicker. And then those types of AI engines will help me out better. Think about an organization who's building an AI powered solution. The quality of the data, along with the quality of the prompting, will 100% predicate the quality of the solution. So if we see organizations today maybe building AI solutions that are introducing security risk, security like in the sense of, hey, that's sensitive data. You don't want that like processed through and shared out in other ways. Or another really good example is what they call ROT data, redundant, obsolete, and trivial. Processing those through AI models, custom built and more, could really poison the results and really just speak to, so many AI projects fail. There's one report from MIT that stated that 95% failed. Well, if they're fed bad data, they're not going to be set up for success. So you have to work backwards in the supply chain of data to make sure solutions are built with, you know, any sensitive data removed, built with the correct permissions, built without redundant, obsolete, and trivial data, so that there's this security and then there's this data quality conversation that goes into the AI approach that organizations are dealing with today. And that will 100% predicate the quality of the solutions because every customer that I talk to or decision maker, they're being mandated to invest in AI. And I'm honestly kind of worried because people are going to have to make a tough decision. Do I get an AI solution right or do I get an AI solution right now? Can't have both.
Yeah.
So I think that organizations are potentially at risk of having data go through in those scenarios. That could be a problem later.
100%. And I guess with bigger companies too, like a lot of the enterprise customers of the world, your data isn't all going to be high quality. There's always going to be some weak link within there. And AI can't help you in that situation anyway, right? Uh,
Right.
so, that's another interesting sort of area. Was there a moment, I guess, you've been having these conversations for such a long time about data resilience, where you thought that data resilience alone wouldn't be enough, that it would be so much more powerful paired with the sort of data security and governance tools that are available with security?
I don't know about enough, but I would say there was a yearning for more.
Mm,
And it really comes down to that generation three type of incident. But what we're finding is as we're starting on this journey of this broader Veeam portfolio of products, where we have our proven data protection solutions and we have our now proven data security posture management stack with the data command center from Security AI. What we're finding is that we're quickly lining up a very clear indication of what's used and what's protected. There's this term in the industry of protection groups, consistency groups, and things like that. This is flipping it on its head. So not only can we ensure things like industry compliance are met end to end in a multi-tiered application, we're also entertaining the map of knowing how it needs to be protected and preemptively having breach impact analysis type of visibility. This is unheard of before. So those are just a couple of examples of why it's different. And when I talk to organizations about this, it really clicks. And sometimes it takes a little bit of discovery, like what are we dealing with and where's the data? And side note, when we talk to organizations who are investing in AI, that's the number one challenge is what I like to call explainability. Follow the data, show me how it's moved and handled and where it's stored. Those types of things are super beneficial when it comes to compliance endeavors, to handling sensitivity of, maybe some personally identifiable information being run through models or other solutions. It doesn't even have to be an AI conversation. So it becomes a massive discovery and awareness endeavor. And then organizations are just running so much more efficient, so much more informed on their data. And it's really exciting because by going into like the primary data estate, having that awareness to then make sure it's protected correctly from all three of these types of generations of disasters, it actually just really gives our audience not just individual like, hey, this is really aligned, but we go sideways to security, like chief information security officer type of personas, data scientists, who are really working with organizations to get their apps to work better and flow better. When you get everybody shaking their head, yeah, this is a good idea. That's where we want to be.
No, exactly. And how often does that realistically happen with most solutions?
Indeed, indeed.
Um, so as organizations are accelerating their use of AI, and kind of working out the best ways to stay safe whilst doing so, getting the benefits without the risks, what new risks do you see emerging, data security that aren't widely understood yet?
In addition to the examples I had before, there's one that I think really sticks out, and that's what I call over permissioning. And it's easy to find. In fact, myself, I've been at Veeam 16 years.
Yeah,
I probably need to run the data command center upon myself because I probably have permissions to things that maybe I don't still need.
yeah,
And that happens in every organization. In fact, I've even taken some manual looks and found in my day to day today with the tools I'm using, I have found where I have over permissioned people for things that honestly are not initiatives that are still in use. And so over permissioning, you can quickly see where I'm going with this.
yeah.
Everybody has it. And the only practical way to get this under control is with the power of AI.
Hmm.
So the thought here is that this is something that I think organizations need to understand. Over permissioning is a big risk. And we have evidence from the ransomware research we've done, as well as some of the scenarios that our business unit Coveware by Veeam, who does incident response with, almost every incident has account takeover, right? So the thought is that TTP, that tool, tactic, and procedure, has to really be minimized in its efficacy and a threat, right? So from a resiliency security standpoint, over permissioning is one that honestly AI is really going to help us get some control over.
Oh, definitely. It's like how pretty much everyone is given permission to use for a website to use cookies at some point when they visited the website once, and then, however long later, you realize, oh, they're still tracking me. Great.
Indeed.
Um, okay, amazing. And I guess where are organizations most underestimating how much data their AI systems are actually touching? Do you feel that people actually have that understanding of how much impacts
That's
they really have?
right. That's a big question that honestly would be really hard to answer for just showing up on someone's desk without the right tool.
Mm.
And back to the example of rot, redundant, obsolete, and trivial, we can actually identify now with the data command center when has a piece of data been accessed. And that's actually really powerful because we can, first of all, determine if it's still needed and useful, but then secondly, we can determine how it's used beyond that. And I think when organizations have to answer this question about the data and how it's used, especially in the AI context, we should be really intentional here because I'm convinced there's a lot of shadow AI going on. Like,
Mm,
for example, if you're listening to this podcast and you're an organization and you don't have an AI policy, first of all, that's your step zero. But then, secondly, I highly recommend providing AI tools, private AI tools that your organization can leverage internally. Like, for example, Microsoft Copilot is a really natural addition for Microsoft 365 folks because you can scope it to the work data and that way it's really kept in its own cycles. I am notorious for also getting kind of like in medical terms we call it a second opinion, right? I'll put one question to Copilot, one to Gemini, one to GPT, and I want to make sure they all kind of go the same direction, but I have to be really intentional that I'm not putting data into a public model that is something that my organization cares about. So I think that as agents are being built and people are building agents, um, uh, one good idea is to do workplace surveys. How much of you are using AI? You'll probably get zero. Some people using it 0%, but then you'll get some people that play with, and then even without them being quote IT people, you'll have a few people doing a lot. It's not complicated to build your own agents. And so from that standpoint, there's a real visibility opportunity that folks need to have. So when agents are being built and data's getting fed into them, those are questions that I think organizations need to be prepared to ask, but more importantly, provide the tools that they can do it correctly.
mhm. No, definitely. And, I guess to almost follow on from that, where would you say does resilience or backup sit in this new Veeam? It's
Ah,
now
yeah.
such a bigger product than it was before. Um,
So that's the heart of what we announced. Let's just say recently, what we announced recently with Agent Commander. So we announced Agent Commander recently is the first directional view of how these portfolio products are going to combine. And Agent Commander really starts of three main primitives. The first one is really around understanding what's built, agent permissions, access of different agents and things as such. But when we think about that, organizations, first of all, have to understand that they are dealing with organizations that are doing that. And then how are they using it? So we call that first pillar, lack of a better word, detect AI. And so the thought is we can find out what's going on, including shadow AI, by just discovering across the estate. The data command center, for example, the heart of what security AI brings. It's really good at finding things. Okay. So that data command graph in particular will find it, including the AI models and agents in use. And then the second pillar, the primitive, is what I would call protect AI. And so that's where the heart of really governing what's going on, enforcing permissions, access controls, thinking about compliance. And at the end of that is undo AI. So, should things not go as expected or data get manipulated in the wrong way, the heart of Veeam will undo that with, precision of bringing that data back. Now, we've announced this as kind of an architecture: detect, protect, and undo these three pillars. We have not specifically aligned it to a single data source or product. However, I will say it's reasonable to expect that some of our capabilities around Microsoft 365 would be among the first to do that. Because, like I said, take Copilot. People can build agents really easy. So that is where the portfolio is going to start to combine and a portfolio of products. And then there's so many initiatives going on right now, but we're really excited for that. And Agent Commander is the first view of that.
Definitely. And I guess I'd also be so interested because, it's been in the space for so long now, particularly with talking specifically about Veeam's portfolio. But, do you feel that over the past 16 years that there's been a big shift in how those conversations go on about resilience and backup from, when you first started?
Yeah, right. 100%. Because each one of these get more serious. So those three generations of disasters, lack of a better word, ransomware, it got real serious real quick. And then I think we're early on the risk of AI powered data problems, right? Of what
Mm.
we're trying to tell the market is an emerging risk. But I think in the end, it's a comprehensive list of risk reduction techniques that have become more important. They become board level. And you and I both have been in the space a while, Laura, and we gravitate to the buzzwords, right?
Yeah.
We do. But I want to tell you, one of them stuck, and one of them's for real, one of them's legit. Maybe 10 years ago, we were talking digital transformation. You
Mm.
remember?
Yeah.
I would challenge Laura, we're there in the sense that we are digitally transformed. And let me give you a good example. Take going on a flight, an airline. That's
Yeah.
probably one of the more mature, digitally transformed experiences because without systems running and available, resilient, it can't happen.
Yeah.
They track flight hours and service cycles of the aircraft by these systems. They track luggage being tracked in and out, passenger manifests, that's all electronic. Leasing the gates, heck, people getting their miles, that's all systems. So the thought here is that's probably a really good example of a fully digitally transformed space for like a
Yeah.
commercial airline, right? And I think so much of us around, enterprise IT are there as well. And now we couple all three generations of these disasters, and it really underscores the importance of where Veeam is going to be this data and AI trust company. It's a perfect fit. So I kind of need to give you a 10-year-old answer to kind of make it fit well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and of course, we still don't even know what the full problems will be with AI as they develop. I think particularly with what we've seen in the past week or so of, say, the deals with Anthropic and ChatGPT with the DOW. We're made some people not trust some of the platforms, and you can only imagine where that could go, kind of going forward. Which is why I find it quite interesting that you're using the words of like data and AI trust as platforms, as opposed to where you might typically talk about these products previously. But at the end of the day, that is the main issue that we have these days in a post-cloud, post-AI world: is where do you trust your data to be? And do you trust that it is where it is? And I guess that's where you guys are trying to solve the problem in providing that safety of mind, right? So,
Well, there's control.
yeah.
There's explainability of where things are. There's control of where things are. And then there's also this incredible good feeling that if something bad were to happen, we can undo that.
Mm.
And I think that all of those together in these current conditions, which are interesting, it's really important to have that explainability, that control, the documentation of the data flow, and then little things like managing encryption and where the data resides, sovereignty, depending on where you are in the world, becomes a topic.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, just being at the heart of the supply chain of data and then data and AI trust, is it really resonates. And I don't ever want to forget our backup roots, but
Yeah.
you know, definitely AI it comes up in every conversation I have with clients.
Yeah.
So I'm okay talking about it because people are asking and they're getting from their directors, they're getting missions that they need to pursue AI projects. I just want to enable them to be successful.
100%. And, everyone needs to learn how to present it to their board and how to best present these issues. Um, And I guess, quite nicely that leads on to the next question of, what do you think are the biggest dangers in data security and data privacy that people don't talk about enough these days?
So I think it's rushing major initiatives such as an AI project
Mm.
without thinking about data security and data privacy. Let me tell you a story from I was talking to a C-level at a bank, and they were super excited because their directive to build a not just an AI solution, but also solve one of their fraud detection initiatives. So it's like a line of business thing and then kind of a technology initiative. They had an
Mm.
AI powered fraud detection system that they had just launched. And this was it was not by any means a large bank, but it was a bank that was taking on a large project, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were getting ready to go through an audit. And they were, in a way, Laura, they were mortified because they'd never had, AI solutions go through an audit. And
Of
I was
course,
just
yeah.
fascinated in the story. They
Yeah.
talked to me about how they had really solid plan of explainability. They
Mm,
were explaining how this was implemented. They were, from a data flow, how the data is handled, what models and where, those types of things. And that's the magic, right? And when I talk about these solutions that Veeam brings with Security AI's data command center, as well as protecting against ransomware, fire, flood, and blood, and hardware failures and network outages. I mean, there are plenty of things that can go wrong.
yeah.
But when you think about these truly next generation techniques,
Mm,
the explainability with the security in mind, with the compliance in mind, with the privacy in mind, with the organizational interests in mind, and then kind of door number three to it all is the cost model, right? They got to also design all of this and pilot it so that the economic model matches the expectations. And this is something I learned in the cloud era a long time ago. You have to get that right before you commit to production, or else it's too late. If you've built something that's just not economically feasible and you're using it, that's kind of a bad situation to be in. So,
of course, yeah.
I would kind of go back to the one thing I said earlier. Do you want to have it right or do you want to have it right now? It's probably better to have it right.
Oh, definitely. And the speed at which AI can bring value to a company means that if you do it right the first time, then it that will already be quicker than if you didn't take it on anyway. And dealing with the fallout is never worth it, in my opinion.
100%.
No one wants a breach these days, or sensitive data to be getting out.
Right.
Um, Historically, data security and data privacy have always been treated as very separate problems, whereas, they seem to be they're obviously being talked about very much in relation to each other, with this new portfolio. Why do you think that model is breaking?
Well, I think a lot of times organizations have kind of brought them together a lot. And, I can say myself, I used to work in the financial services world and went through audits and things like that. And I wouldn't say that they're different or separate, but I would say anytime something goes through an audit, their success of whether they're compliant or not is completely predicated by how it's implemented and how it's audited, right?
Mm,
So I think it's super important that organizations think about what they've built, what they are using, to then think about how they go about a broader compliance and certification type journey. And when data security should be an absolute um, must have. It's like a step -1, step zero type of thing.
mm,
And it's just the risk that we're in. So I think of data security as risk reduction. So keeping good data safe from bad things, or preemptively thinking how threat actors and more could go after data. It sounds crazy to think, oh, they would never target me. Oh, that's not true. Threat actors would. And honestly, they can even be internal. All right. That is an actual identifiable percentage of incidents when we look at ransomware type scenarios. So I think data security is a non-starter.
mm,
Data privacy, that's an area that I think gets really line of business specific. The compliance involved, the um, GDPR is a good example. I know there's a lot of around the world examples that can also apply to that. HIPAA is a big one here in the United
mm,
States, for example. And I think organizations need to take that seriously from a privacy standpoint. And when we're on the AI edge, never forget these rules. I like to sum it all up best of business benefit first, compliance always. Okay, so they're equal priorities, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to recommend an organization in any situation to go down an AI initiative if they're going to have compliance, governance, privacy errors. No way. And back to like the tooling we have in this world today, we have AI powered tools like Data Command Center that can help us balance that and go down an AI initiative without moving sensitive data that would get us into privacy problems. So, yeah, I mean, I just think that sums it up best. Business benefit first, compliance always.
Oh, definitely. Um, and I guess from your perspective with this new acquisition that has gone through, it sounds like there'll be more to come, which will be really exciting to
Oh,
see.
100%. We've got a whole year worth of news schemed up. It feels like we've got major events coming up with RSAC in San Francisco, and then we've got our flagship event, our Veeam flagship event's going to happen in New York, London, and Sydney. First time we've taken it like globally corporate. Each one will have news as well as our around the world city market tour type events, right? So Veeam will be through the summer coming to a market near you. Yeah.
Gosh, I can't wait. That sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel that with these with these problems that you're trying to solve, and there's a lot to kind of cover in that respect. Do you feel that you are trying to tackle problems that are very much live today, or are you trying to tackle problems of the future ahead of time?
I think we're speaking to both, Laura, just to
Mm,
be completely transparent. Fire, flood, and blood ransomware, everyone can agree those are risks.
yeah.
But when we look at potentially um, data that shouldn't be fed into AI models, sensitive data being put into AI pipelines that they shouldn't be, that's a risk that not everyone has had yet. But those who have had AI projects fail, I would almost bet one of the reasons were some of the things I mentioned: rot data, sensitive data, over permissioned, and then you get new problems, the
Mm,
economic model not working, all kinds of things like that. I think are reasons why AI projects fail. And so I think that organizations it's early days with this third generation of risk, but decision makers are gonna, every time I talk to them about it, they're like, yeah, I want to get in front of that.
mm. No, completely. And I think it's an interesting area at the moment. You're seeing a lot of acquisitions, particularly within the AI security space. Every big platform wants to have their piece of the pie for that. Between CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Cato Networks, there's quite a few acquisitions in the past year that have happened there. I think where there has been more acquisitions compared to, say, companies that have been getting insane rounds of funding since 2022. It's really reignited that debate about platform versus point solution, From your perspective, where would you see that work best? What do you think it serves the customer better?
So I've had this discussion really all of my time at Veeam, believe it or not. And the good news is now we have, the capabilities that expand not just in one area, but several areas and more. And let me give you the kind of the long form answer here because there, I'm going to make it's going to sound like a joke, Laura, but the average family, at least where around where I live, is 2.3 kids.
Mm,
Okay. And I also talk to a lot of organizations that have around 2.3 backup products. And I also talk to a lot of decision makers who really want to standardize.
mm,
So I think the platform versus point solution type of discussion is really short-sighted in the sense of organizations are swamped. IT pros, CISOs, everybody in between, CIOs, they have a million priorities going on. And they need every advantage that they can to scale not just their teams, but the business they support. And if you can consolidate to a platform And it's really simple. It is a unit example of just training and the skills gap. That's a very real problem, right? And so when I talk to folks, they really want to standardize. They want to have the existing staff cover as much as they can. So that is definitely leaning towards platform on what I observe in the market, but you won't go very far if you don't have the legs where you need it. And what I mean by that is you got to have capabilities, right? Deep, integrated, powerful capabilities. And so, specifically in backup and data protection, for sure, we've been proven in all of the analyst comparatives, very successful. And this is the 20th year, profitable the whole time, which is also unique. And then if we look at what we've acquired with Security AI's data command graph or data command center, that, like I said, just changes the game because we're going to this next level platform that really gives a lot of command over the data in the end. And it's really important that command word is a strong word because the visibility it gives is truly incredible, much less
Mm.
should something go wrong, put it back from a backup and replication or backup and recovery standpoint. So I think platform wins every day. And it's going to be aligning to an organization's interest of standardizing skills gap. And the one thing I'll say is that, Veeam products are not difficult to use. And that's super differentiating today because
Don't
nobody
need to
has
train your
time.
staff to
Yeah,
use 10
yeah.
different products.
And it's kind of funny. There's no job title called Veeam administrator on LinkedIn, and it
Yeah.
and it kind of sounds jokey, but I think that speaks to the usability of our products, and,
Mm.
and that's going to continue. The real, if I really dissect what we're definitely on platform side of that question, okay, but where we're going with platform is really around having these connections that Veeam has across all types of data, putting this in one place and really giving this type of command across primary data, secondary data, AI, applications, cloud, Kubernetes, Salesforce, you name it, software as a service. We're we're really well positioned here for this.
Yeah, and I guess it's where, the debate is always around, well, it's always better to have less solutions, but at the same time, you don't want to compromise on the quality, right? And I think that's what's really interesting about the combination of Veeam and security is that they're actually two market leading solutions. So, according to most metrics.
Yeah.
So, which is really rare. Normally you'll get, one big name acquire a very early stage product that could be amazing, but we don't necessarily know. But both have been very much proven within the market. And security had a really great presence within the US, for example. Um, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes next. It's amazing. I guess, would you like Veeam and security to be that one-stop shop for all data problems then? Is that the end goal?
Well, that sounds great, but I think for many areas, yes, but I think I should also highlight that a really important part of our business. I mean, I like to say at Veeam that partnerships are in Veeam's DNA.
Yeah.
So we're still going to have partnerships with storage platforms, with cloud platforms, with software as a service platforms, with hardware appliances and industry standard servers, because we are unapologetically software for just about all of our business. But
Yeah.
we need those other parts of the technology stack to really make it complete. And, I would ramble off some examples, but there's a lot. And then those are just the providers, right? I'd also argue that Veeam has a really differentiating angle with cloud service providers, managed service providers, as well as the big hyperscale platforms. But
Mm.
then also there's professional services, there's resellers, there's global systems integrators. Each one of these types of partners are finding their way in this data and AI trust model, which I think in the end Veeam, I think, will be very much, I'd love it to be the one-stop shop. But I'd say when you calculate all those other areas, in fact, just to give you a crazy example, Laura, I want to say it was Thursday of last week. We hosted a group here in the office, a Veeam user group. And one of the folks was from a company, a small company, but 13 people.
Mm,
And all they do is Veeam. Like basically, they're a company that exists providing like it's more implementation services, but
yeah.
it's only doing Veeam. And I was fascinated. I run into companies like this all the time that, wow, you're literally reading everything I write and then making those good ideas come in and implement that for customers. He goes, yeah. And I'm like, wow. So, we have these, I don't want to call it like an extended ecosystem, extended
Yeah.
bubble. But yeah, the one-stop shop is right, but I would be remiss if I didn't give a hat tip to all the different Veeam partner types around the world. So
Definitely.
mostly yes, with a long line of thank yous to them all.
God, that must be so satisfying when you just know that someone's actually reading all that work I
Yeah, indeed,
do. All
indeed.
the things I put into the universe are being heard by someone.
Right.
They're amazing. And I guess, from a customer perspective, security has often delivered new capabilities just as the risk landscape shifts. Um, with this expanded platform post-acquisition, what new problems do you want to help CISO solve next?
Oof. Well, definitely be ready for that third generation of risk. That's kind of
Mm,
the newest element of what we are into. But I also think it's a wonderful time to refine the generation one and two type problems. And I'll be the first to say, so many, and we have plenty of research to back it up, but so many orgs are just truly not prepared for ransomware. So many orgs are not prepared for true disaster, things like that. So I
mm,
think when we go to this utopia, we have to have all of those right. We have to have all of those at a level that a customer would expect of that organization. We have to have all of those at a level that an audit would expect, right? And back to the digitally transformed nature of things, people don't really have patience. If something's not working, they're going to go use the other one, right? So I think that what I would tell, solving problems of next is really mastery of some of the basics. Mastery of that will pave your way for a high level of resiliency across not just keeping things running, but the quality of AI systems, being prepared for disasters, being prepared for ransomware, being prepared to allow the business to scale AI. That is what data and AI trust will be. So I'm really excited. We're on a journey. I'm not saying we're by any means done. In fact, Veeam will never be done.
mm.
The ecosystem keeps changing. You mentioned that this was really a combination of leaders. It was a big acquisition. It wasn't the phrase a lot of times they use is what they call a tuck in. So they kind of tuck it into the
Yeah, yeah.
portfolio. This was not. This was a big undertaking, and we're not done. I don't know if we'll do anything that big, but we do have many projects now looking for what is the next kind of capability, and we've always had this build versus buy,
Yeah.
to expand our capability set. I'd say the first uh, 10-ish years that I've been at Veeam were very much build.
Mm,
But now, basically in this decade, we've really prioritized buy, and it's reasonable to
yeah.
expect every year or so we're going to add something. So my thought here is I'm really about just providing the best in risk reduction. So we're doing that now through data and AI trust, and hopefully, folks are kind of really seeing the opportunity here, seeing the value, and honestly, if not, just talk to us about it because it gets specific quick. It really does. There's a lot of discovery, and chances are we'll be able to tell you something about your environment that you didn't know.
Definitely. And that's where the other interesting question is do you buy versus build? But I was having this conversation with a startup CEO the other day where it's really tough to innovate. And so if somebody else has come and done a lot of the heavy lifting and come up with that great idea and built the foundations, then for bigger vendors, that can be much better way to kind of innovate and develop.
Well,
Um,
and there's time pressure. I mean,
mm,
in this space, time, you
that's
have to
everything.
have responses as soon as possible, right? So what's the quickest way to add something to the portfolio or to close a gap, right? And so I can put myself back to before Veeam when I used to be an end user, and you can see when acquisitions go well, and everybody knows when they don't, is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
So we work hard to make this. We've been doing really good about our integrations of applications that we've started recently. So I'm excited for that. We got a whole team that really works on the business internal side of that. And then product is going to really just deliver that. So, like I said, some of them go good, and the ones that don't, everybody knows.
Yeah, it's a small industry with a lot of gossip, isn't it?
Yes.
Um, but no, amazing. Well, that's it for another episode of the Hubscale podcast. I'd like to give a huge thanks to Rick for joining us today. I know he's busy with travels at the moment. Be sure to check out our LinkedIn for our other podcasts and our YouTube channel for more episodes. Um, and yes, thank you so much, Rich, for putting the time aside to speak with us today.
Of course.